Welcome to the VCE Applied Computing and Software Development Frequently Asked Questions session about our upcoming textbooks for our new study design. I'm Selina Dennis, one of the co-authors of the texts. We're pleased to announce that both of our editions of Applied Computing and Software Development textbooks are receiving a refresh and an update to take into account the minor review of the Applied Computing study design. That makes it the 8th edition of the Applied Computing text and the 2nd edition of the software development text.
So Selina, what has changed in the 2025 VCE Applied Computing study design?
That's a great question because it is a minor review of the study design. However, there was a lot of clarification in this study design in a really pleasing way that allowed us to really know exactly what their key terms, key skills, and key knowledge were that were being asked of students to learn. In VCE Applied Computing, one of the largest changes is the introduction of SQL for database use. Now, SQL, structured query language, is something that many teachers of data analytics might have been familiar with, but was never explicitly taught within our study design. So the SQL is introduced at Year 11 in Unit 1, and it allows students to explore data visualizations and interpretation. And that's addressed in the textbook in one of our chapters. Another significant change in applied computing is the emerging trends in programming that's throughout units 1 through 4, specifically including AI generation. And that's covered within our chapters in our textbooks for the applied computing text and the software development text. Object-oriented programming has always been a requirement in applied computing. However, the explicit teaching of the principles of OOP, such as abstraction and encapsulation, are new to Unit 1 and 2. As is cryptography. Previously, it was touched upon as a concept that as part of encryption, but there are explicit cryptographic rules that are being taught in units 1 and 2. Similarly, we have an extension of the legal acts and requirements that students will learn, such as the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the Essential 8 Framework, and Information Security Guidelines. Each of these are introduced clearly and concisely within the appropriate section of units 1 and 2 in applied computing. For software development, there's a significant advancement that's occurred in the last 2 years on the emerging trends in code generation using AI. While traditional methods of code generation has involved simple code completion and tab completion, we explore further what that means in the software development field in terms of looking at how we improve the efficiency of code, how we debug code, and how we take the generated code and enhance upon that to create working software. The principles of object-oriented programming are further expanded upon from units 1 and 2 with a deeper discussion of inheritance and generalization. This is the first introduction of a structured design brief in software development as well, when in our previous study design, a brief was not required as part of their formal assessment. In the SAT requirement for students in the new study design, a design brief is required. Similarly, specificity and clarity has been introduced as far as specific ideation techniques, such as mood boards, and these are explored in detail in the new text. Testing has had a significant change with alpha and beta testing introduced as concepts in the study design, and those are explored as to how they are relevant and when to conduct those tests. And finally, the focus on the applied computing units 1 and 2 Essential 8 Framework and Information Security Guidelines is further expanded upon for software development.
Okay, so you've mentioned that there's a larger focus on AI in this study design. So how has this been addressed in the textbooks?
It's a great question because it is a deep dive when we're looking at AI. It could be something that you could spend weeks on, but unfortunately you don't have that amount of time in our course to be able to do so. In applied computing, it's a bit of a taster. We explore low code development in terms of code generation, and that's the simplistic elements of code that you can generate using the generative AI models. There are examples as well of long-term and new applications that can assist with low-code development, such as Power Apps by Microsoft, but also looking at some of the newer forms of code generation tools, such as Copilot. In software development, it's a bit of a deeper dive. Students will explore prompt generation of code using large language model and AI-based tools such as ChatGPT and similar. And debugging techniques are explored in the textbook to show students what best practice is as far as how to use these models. There is a fine line between plagiarism and using the models as ideation and assistance tools. And the textbook does touch briefly upon how we can explore the tools used with AI generative models in ways that are ethical. Code optimization techniques in particular are useful to explore, and they are explored in the textbook. That really shows students how to appropriately use these models in a way that can increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of their solutions.
There's also been a similar focus on encryption. How has this been addressed in the textbooks?
Encryption has been elaborated upon in the key knowledge of the study design, where more detail covering required encryption techniques has been introduced, such as the specific mention of AES, RSA, ECDH, and ECDSA. Worked examples are included in the textbooks for students to consider particular ciphers. That really allows them to explore through case studies how it is that they are applying the algorithms to achieve the alphabetic ciphers and the other ciphers that are covered, such as vignettes. These worked examples demonstrate to students how some of these encryption techniques work, but only at a level for them to really solidify their understanding. They're not required to go any further than understanding the use of these particular encryption models.
Selina, is there a particular programming language that would complement the textbooks?
The study design does not dictate any particular coding language, although it does specify certain requirements that must be met, such as object-oriented programming capabilities. So any language is sufficient. However, throughout the textbook, through feedback that we have received from teachers and students alike, we've decided that the majority of examples in the textbooks are based in Python. And that's considering that Python has been increasingly used in classrooms, both at secondary and tertiary level, throughout the country in recent years, and is one of the most popular programming languages for teaching. You can see here in our slide some samples of the screenshots that we include in the textbook that are written in Python.
And finally, can you share with us what has been updated in the new editions and some of your key features of what's new?
Quite a lot's been updated. We've really explicitly aligned the textbooks to the revised applied computing study design. We've spent quite a bit of time making sure that it's really clear to teachers and to students what it is that they're covering and how that relates to what is in the published study design. At the start of each chapter, we've included explicit reference to the numbered key skills and key knowledge that's covered for teachers and students to know what's being taught in those chapters. And we've also updated all of our teaching and learning support that includes multiple choice quizzes, chapter tests, practice exams, and sample SACs. There are end of chapter questions that have been updated, including some new hands-on programming questions. And we've also included within the textbook itself, based on feedback, new exam practice modules. So both textbooks, at the end of each unit, there are mini practice end of unit exams that are new to the textbooks. You can see here that here is a sample of that exam practice. So it has a mini case study, it has multiple choice questions, and we've also included example short answer questions that are based off those case studies. And that's to model to students early on that familiarity that they can have there to the end of your exam in units 3 and 4, so that there are 3 sections in that exam, and we have modeled the practice exams to also have those 3 sections. But I'm sure you're all wondering when those new textbooks will be available. And what we're looking at right now as our timeline is that November, they will be available for schools and for students to purchase, and planning and Head Start programs are going to be supported by Nelson Cengage. If you have any further questions at all, please reach out to your learning consultant for more information.